Hello and welcome to Pixel Magic Tutorials. I am your host Geekman, and today I'm going to teach you the first part of creating a ringed planet like Saturn in Photoshop. Now, a couple of assumptions that I'm making right off the bat. The first one being that I am using Photoshop CC 2015. If you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, then some of the effects may not work as expected. Second, I'm using Windows, so if you're using a Mac, when I say hit the Control key on the keyboard, that means hit the Command key, and when I say hit the Alt key on the keyboard, that means hit the Option key. So with that out of the way, let's get started by hitting Control N on our keyboard to bring up a brand new document, and let's name this Ringed Planet. Oh, Planet, not Planel. And we are going to use a width of 3840 pixels, a height of 2160 pixels, resolution of 150 pixels per inch. Color mode is RGB color 8-bit. Background contents don't matter, it will be changing. Color profile is Adobe RGB 1998, and we are using square pixels. Hit OK when you are ready, and we are ready to begin. Now, I'm going to use a background of a star field that I created in an earlier video tutorial. I'll leave a link in the description below on how you can create that star field from one of my videos. You are free to use that, or you can go online and find whatever space scene that you want in order to create this, in order to use as a backdrop for creating this ringed planet. However you want to do it. But for me, I'm going to use an earlier version, an earlier tutorial effect on this as my background. So I'm going to open that now by hitting Control O on my keyboard to Starfield for Planet. I'm going to hit Open. I don't need to make any changes to it because it's beautiful just the way it is. And then I am going to duplicate this by right-clicking, Duplicate Layer, and I am going to put that onto my ringed planet. OK. And that is it. I don't need this anymore, so I close it. And it is gone. And here we are on our ringed planet. This is the background copy. We no longer need our original background, so we can just throw that away. And we're going to rename this as Star Field so that I know what it is and I don't get confused. So we now have our backdrop for our planet. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to create a brand new layer above the star field. Layer 1 is fine. We don't need to rename it because we will be getting rid of it fairly soon. Okay, on this new layer, we are going to render some fibers to make the gases for our gas planet with rings. So we're going to go to Filter, Render, and Fibers to render some fibers. Now, over here on the Fibers options, you're going to zoom out so that you can see the entire screen like that. The variance that we want to use is 15. The strength is 5. Feel free to change those to make it look however you'd like, but this works very well for the type of planet that I'm creating. So then you want to hit randomize a few times until you see something that you like. This looks fine to me. All of it looks good to me right now. This looks great. So let's hit OK. And we now have our fibers for our gas, but they don't quite look as smooth as gas planets usually look in the photos that you see from NASA and other space agencies. So what we're going to do is we're going to blur these slightly with a motion blur. So we're going to go to Filter, Blur, Motion Blur. We're going to make sure that we are at an angle 90, distance of 450, and now they're beginning to look just like gas planet, winds going through, all of that. So we're going to hit OK, and we're now ready to give this some color. So the way that we're going to do that is creating a brand new layer above layer 1, so now layer 2. Again, we don't need to name it because we're going to get rid of them very soon. And we're going to change this layer's mode to Color Burn. Once we're ready there, we're going to go to our Gradient tool by clicking on the Gradient tool over here, or you can hit G on the keyboard to bring that up. We're going to make sure that we are on linear. Mode is normal, opacity 100. You don't need to hit reverse, so you can uncheck that. Dither and transparency both checked. And then we want to click directly on the gradient so that we can get to the gradient editor. And we're going to make sure that our gradient type is noise. Normally it's on solid so that you can create your own gradient, but what we want is noise so that it's very random looking. We want our roughness here to be at 40%. RGB color mode, restrict colors and add transparency are both unchecked, and then you just want to hit randomize until you see colors that you like for your planet. Now, you can use any colors that you like. I'm looking for something that just catches my eye. Now I found something. It took all of about 10 seconds hitting randomize to find what I wanted. So this looks good to me. I'm going to hit OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a gradient from the left to the right. So we're going to click on the left-hand side, hold down Shift on the keyboard, go all the way to the right-hand side, let go, and we now have a nice-looking gradient. We are then going to combine our layer 2 and layer 1 together by making sure that layer 2 is highlighted or selected, and we're going to hit Control E on the keyboard to merge them together. We now have one layer with the color-burned gaseous look to it. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to get our elliptical marquee. So we're going to hit M on the keyboard for elliptical marquee, or you can go over here to the marquee, and you can just go down to elliptical marquee. We're going to make sure that it's on new selection. We're going to turn feather to 0. Anti-alias is checked. Style is going to be fixed size. And we're going to make this fixed size 1735 by 1735. That is going to be the size of our planet. We are then going to click anywhere on the document to make our selection. Okay, then we're going to drag our selection anywhere we want on the image to get the desired look that we want. So if you were, for example, interested in the colors here on the left side of the screen of the orangey reds all the way to the yellows, then you would put your circle here. If you wanted more of the reddish and yellow look, like I do, then you would want to put your circle for the planet here, your marquee over here on the right-hand side. I'm going to make it a little bit more towards the middle so that I get a little bit of the red on top, and then it goes down to browns and yellows and a little bit of greenish blue on the bottom. I think that looks pretty good, just like that. So once I have that, and I'm happy with where my elliptical marquee is for my planet, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and then paste it to a new layer. So you're going to hit Control C on your keyboard and then Control V on your keyboard. And you can see over here on our layers palette, we now have a brand new layer called Layer 2 with our planet. We can then throw away Layer 1. We no longer need it. And we just have our planet left. We can then double click on here to rename this. And we're going to rename it as Planet because that's what it's going to be. And then we are going to use our move tool, so hit V on the keyboard and move our planet to the center. And you should see these center guidelines show up so that you know that you are in the center of the document. Once we have that, we are then going to control click on the layer thumbnail for planet, like so, to make a selection of the planet. Once we have that, we're going to go to Filter, Distort, and Spherize. We're going to make sure that the amount is at 100%, mode is going to be normal, and we're going to hit OK. And we now have a planet that looks round with a lot of gas lines going through it. And these are, like Saturn, is made mostly of gas, so the winds make the gases flow around the planet, and this is kind of what it looks like. But it looks a little bit too man-made. It doesn't look as if there are winds there. It just looks like, you know, somebody ran a comb through paint, kind of. So what we want to do is we want to make this look more gaseous. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to deselect this by hitting Control D so that we have deselected our planet. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to, before we do anything else, we need to duplicate our planet. So we're going to select our planet and hit Control J to duplicate it. We are then going to name this as 4 cutout. And we are going to hide that, and we're going to put it underneath planet. We don't really need this just yet. This is going to be for cutting out the planet after we make this look more gaseous. It makes things a little bit easier later if you make a small mistake. And I'll show you exactly what I mean in just a moment. So let's make sure that we have selected planet, and then we are going to go to Liquify. Okay, and we're going to go to Filter, Liquify on the planet layer, and we can now liquefy this to make it look cool. I don't know why I'm getting this weirdness happening up here, but whatever. So now we've got our size of our brush tool. Needs to be about 200-ish, so that it's about 200 to 300 pixels. I'm making it 250. This density needs to be about 50, not 100. Pressure should be 100. Rate is 0, and that's all that you need to change in the properties. And then what we're going to do is you're going to, with the grain, so going top to bottom or bottom to top, we are going to then lightly brush to give this kind of a more organic feel to our planet. And, you know, you don't have to do too much. It doesn't have to be a great amount here. You're just trying to make it look as if there are actual winds on the planet blowing around the planet and making these gases flow a little bit better. Now, why did I make you do a cutout layer? The cutout layer is in case you do something like this around the edge. You see how I made this, this little point at the top? We're going to cut that out by using our cutout. And that's how you can get closer to the edge. Make sure that when you get to the edge, you never go in towards the center of the planet. Always go out, away from the center of the planet. That way, when you cut out things, it will always be outside. You won't ever have a blank space on the planet, because that would just look wrong. So yeah, you can do that on the top and the bottom of the planet like this. Or the left and the right, I mean, right now, but soon they will be the top of the bottom. And there we go. Now, while you're looking at this, you also want to think about where your top and bottom are going to be, because obviously, with planets, everything blows from east to west. They don't blow from north to south. So on my particular planet, the red side is going to be either the top of the bottom, and the yellowish side over here will be either the top of the bottom, depending on which way I turn the planet. I think that the north side will be the colder side, I guess. So I'm going to make this yellowish part the top. So that means that if I felt very artistic, I could go over here to the twirl tool, and I could give my gas planet an eye. Okay, and the way that you do that is you just stick the twirl tool right about here, and you just go like this until you get a nice eye for your planet. And that looks pretty cool. Then you can go back to your forward warp tool, and you can move this around a little bit so that it looks a little bit cooler, just like this. And then go back to the twirl. Give it a little bit more of a twirl. Ah, that looks cool. Okay, so there we go. We now have our planet. So we can hit OK. And feel free to do that as much or as little as you'd like. And now this is where the cutout layer becomes important, because we can now hit Controls and click on the cutout thumbnail. And we now have our planet able to be cut out, and then we can hit Control Shift and I to select the inverse of our planet, and then we can hit Delete on our planet layer, and then Control D, and we have a perfectly round planet again with no humps or anything on the outside. Okay, so then we can get rid of For Cutout by throwing that away, and we now have our planet ready. So let's just recap real quick. What we did is we created some fibers. We added some color to the fibers. We made a elliptical marquee selection, put that on a new layer, and then we just warped the layer slightly by making it look a little bit more organic with its winds. Now what we're going to do is we are going to transform this planet. And we're going to do that by hitting Control T on our keyboard. And then we don't really have to do much. I've worked it all out already. So we're going to go up here to Angle, and we're going to go to -75. Okay, and that will give us this. But that puts red at the top, which is fine. I don't really want it to be at the top, so I'm just going to turn it like this so that it is 115. So there you go, 115 for me. 75 usually works well if you want the right-hand side of your planet to be at the top. If you want the left-hand side of your planet to be at the top like I do, 115 degrees is a good number to bring it up, to give it a slight tilt. Okay, then for the size over here, width and height, we want to make sure that we click on the lock icon so that they both change at the same rate, and we want to make it 50% of its size. So now our width and height are 50%. Once that's done, hit the check mark, and we now have our gaseous planet ready to go. The next thing that we want to do is we want to give this planet an atmosphere. And the way that we're going to do that is with a layer style. So let's go to our layer style. Let's start with an inner shadow. Okay, and we're going to need 3 inner shadows here. So the very first one, the top one, is going to be blend mode of multiply. Color is going to be black. That's all zeros. Opacity is going to be 41%. Angle is 25. Use global light is unchecked. Distance is 151. Choke is 53. Size is going to be 191. Contour is linear, which is the very first one, the default. Anti-alias is unchecked, and noise is 0. Then you can duplicate that by hitting the little plus icon, and you will then change just a couple of things. Blend mode still stays the same, so does color. Opacity then gets changed to 61. Angle is going to be a 25 still. Use global light is still unchecked. Distance is 151. Choke is now 0, and size is going to be 81. Contour is going to stay the same, anti-alias stays the same, and noise stays the same. Then you're going to duplicate that one again, and everything stays the same. Opacity then goes to 70%. Angle stays the same. Use global light is still unchecked. Distance is now 44. Choke is still 0. Size is 65. Contour is staying the same, so does anti-alias and noise. Next up, you want to go to inner glow. Now this is where you've got to think about what you want, because blend mode is going to be normal, opacity is 80%, noise is 0, but the color is going to depend on the color of your planet. Now purple obviously does not work for a yellowish red planet. So I've got to go into my color, and I've got to choose a color that works with yellow and red, and that would be something along this line, something yellowy. You can see that now my atmosphere looks like yellow, which matches the planet, which is correct. So whatever your planet colors are, choose a color for your atmosphere that goes with that. So if you've got a red planet, you want something that's got a reddish glow to it. If you have a bluish planet, you want it to be more bluish and green, so forth and so on. So once you have the color that you like, you want to select that color down here, and you want to Control C so that you copy that color. Then you want to hit OK, change your technique to softer, source is going to be the edge, choke is 0, size is going to be 35 pixels, contour is linear, which is the default, anti-alias is unchecked, range is 50, jitter is 0. The next thing that we need to do is an outer glow. So you want to click on outer glow, and you're going to make the blend mode normal, opacity is 25%, noise is 0, and then in the color, you're just going to paste in the color that you had before. So I just pasted in the yellowish color. You paste in whatever color that you used on your inner glow. So then we want to make the technique a softer, spread is 0, size is only 7 pixels, contour is linear, anti-alias is unchecked, range is 50%, jitter is 0. You can then hit OK, you are done, and your planet is ready for its rings. Now I will work on the rings in the next installment of this tutorial, which you will find next week on Tuesday. Now I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, then please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe. I create new tutorials every Tuesday. Once again, this is Geekman signing off for Pixel Magic Tutorials.